I Okay. This is absolutely one of our all-time favorite presenters, and we are so thrilled to have him. For those of you who don't know anything about Shelly, let me just give you a little bit. You know, he's founder and programmer host for Cafe Cinematheque International, programs available at many theatrical and academic venues throughout South Florida. Presently, he also teaches the foreign language film appreciation for lifelong learning, and he just came back from a fabulous cruise where he did his whole shtick for 7 films to those lucky travelers who had the opportunity not just to be at sea, but to be at sea with Shelly. In addition to his exclusive cruises, he serves as the film expert for Celebrity Cruises Lines during their annual voyage to Cannes International Film Festival. Shelly's going to give an explanation of tonight's film, why it's not a comedy and why it's dark. He will give his critique. And as always, it is my pleasure to welcome all of you on behalf of the Friends of the Sterling Road Library, and we hope you're all friends. And of course, to welcome Shelly Isaacs back.
Thank you, Fern. Thank you. Hello, everybody. It's nice to see you. It's nice to see you as always, as always. Well, I know there's been discussion in the air about, you know, this being such a dark film. Well, I want you to think about our theme this session, this whole session, which was, you know, it's about She's All That. And I did mention within the theme, she's good, she's bad, you know, it works out every which way. But this is, you know, and I want you, you know, to think about the film that was supposed to precede this was The Teacher. So there was a method to my madness that this would be a corollary one to the other. Well, it's even better this way because your first film in January will be The Teacher. So we will have a corollary to discuss both ways. Anyway, also, if you think a teacher has it rough in this country, voila, think of Bulgaria. You know, it's a rough place, but you know, just to the directors, and there are 2 to this film, Kristina Gerzeva and Peter Valshanov. This was their debut film, and I will tell you though, for a debut, it's quite a good film. It's small budget, as you can imagine, in Bulgaria. Where, you know, so it's where they can't scrape 2 shekels together. It is a very interesting film. I got to shut my Siri up. I don't know what happened there. Go away. Anyway, so it being a low budget film, given what they're working with, and they wrote the script themselves as well. And this film won a lot of awards around the world. And each of them, I will tell you out front, since you've already seen the film, this is based on a true story. This is based on a true story. This actually happened. This actually happened. A school teacher with 2 master's degrees robbed the bank. But I will get into what happened to her at the end of the film, because this film leaves us off at that point. But you know, I want you to, you know, we have to think of one of the things you should think about with this film is anything that can go wrong will go wrong. Anything that can go wrong. This is an epigram for tragedy when it strikes on a seemingly constant basis. And Murphy's Law can be appropriately applied to this film, where things never seem to go right. Simply and subtly, you know, Bulgaria transcends that adage into a piece of fine, I think, a piece of fine cinema. When you think about it, it's a Rube Goldberg of everything going wrong. Of a broken machine. You know, it's held together by this actress, and Nada. She does a terrific job with this film and with her part. You know, it begins and ends in her classroom. She's, you know, we see that her newest lesson is trying to catch the culprit of an innocent child or seemingly innocent child theft between classmates. Someone has stolen one of their wallets, and she's intent on finding the thief and teaching them the lesson, which automatically tells us she has a moral and ethical center, a very good moral and ethical center. She's trying to teach them ethics and morals at the same time. She's intent on finding this thief and teaching him a lesson, fearing that his behavior will transcend into his adult life and lead to more severe consequences. One of the first, if not only, things we needed to know about her is that she is this honest person. Times are tough for her, as we see. She comes home, and lo and behold, the camper is parked and blocking the entrance to the house, which is a great symbol in the film when you think about it. It's sort of cutting them off from the world. It's cutting her off from access. She's barely able to afford bus fare. Remember, she has to borrow it. She arrives home and then finally discovers that the money that should have gone towards their debt had been sunk into the gearbox of that trailer that her husband repeatedly failed to sell and repeatedly failed to tell her he wasn't paying the bills. All in all, how much was the debt? If you remember, the debt was probably $1.26 that she still owed on this thing, which drives her up a tree, literally. But we learn later that as I said, it's a metaphorical barrier between the family and the rest of the world. And tasked to make good on her debt within 3 days, or everything goes on the auction block, she sets aside her better judgment and gets into business with some shady individuals. But that comes a little later. We also find out that she has a second job, translating documents. And she's owed money on that, which would make up the debt. And she's told no. And where does she go? She goes to her father. And before that, though, remember that scene when she touchingly sees the picture. We see the picture of a woman in uniform on the wall. It's her mother. It's her mother, her dear mother. And she visits her grave. She goes and has a cup of coffee at the grave. She brings one for her mother. And it's touching. She's devoted. She's devoted to her child. Somewhere along the line, she loved this Schmigegi. But anyway, so now her father, and I love the entrance when she goes to her father. The first one we meet is the lady in question that he's taking up with. She comes out in a tutu, we understand why Nada paints the mustache on her face, if you remember in the picture, when she decides to leave. So, this film is, although it's not, it is the comedy of life. We get these little moments that you have to laugh at, the absurdity that she has to go through in this film. Things couldn't be getting any worse. She's forced at one point. I love it. We even have the Chekhov device. What is the Chekhov device? It's a water pistol. When she takes the water pistol off the kids, she puts it away. She doesn't even think about it. She just inadvertently put it in a pocketbook, right? We don't think anything about it because we don't. And this is the great surprise of this film. Is we have no idea where it's going. We think, oh my God, and if we're Hollywood, she'll wind up finding the money. Somebody will give her the money. But and the guy who plays the loan shark, whoa, this is a guy you love to hate. And what he puts her through, but I love it when she has to go. She goes to the bank. Finally, She has the money. She goes to the bank, and she's what, a minute late. They won't take her, and it's okay. But you're a zloty short. I think it was like 30 cents. I think we're talking about 30 cents when she says you're this much short, and she's got to have it in. She goes out. She goes to the fountain. I mean, what she's forced to do, what she's, nobody should have to. Nobody like her should ever have to. But isn't that the way it always happens? And then sure enough, when she goes to complain to the police about the loan shark, she goes in, go down the hall. It's the last cop on the right. She goes into the room, and who's the last cop on the right? The guy that was at the shop when she was taking out the loan. And that looked at her. So she's going to complain about him to him. We see all of these events that are constantly knocking her down. And I have to talk a little bit about the cinematography. What they use. They take this very square lens of their camera, and they set it against, it's all set against rigid frames, doorways, window panes. If you're watching the film, it's shot through windows, through doorways, and it shows the reshuffling chaos that's entering the life of this woman in this town. It's shot exceptionally well despite its lack of funding. The lesson, it's a reminder to us that films don't need much money to look interesting in this case. But she plays it with such calm and collect. She's calm and collected most of the time. She's walking through this. She does a lot of walking, and we're following her. And even when the car breaks down, she just gets out and she keeps on going. She keeps on going. But she's the film's heart. She's the soul and the patience that allows for us to engage with her as long as possible. She's stripped down in the face of homelessness and threats of blackmail. It never sidelines her ego or her pride when you think about it. Her integrity is the real star of the lesson. It's this strong female character that doesn't wear a cape. She's not conquering any other worldly elements, that she is the glue that holds the film together. And she never breaks down in tears. We never see her break down in tears. She trembles a little bit, we know she's a little frightened inside when the guy is sitting there with the buzzsaw on the desk. It's taking its emotional toll. But I think, she gains our empathy during some of these moments. And while she's in solace and peace in the classroom, we see it highlights all these stark differences between that classroom, these kids. And think about this. What world are these kids coming into? That's one of the lessons of the film for us, is what kind of world, if a teacher has to fight this kind of world and teach kids to be ethical and moral when their parents and uncles are anything but, what kind of world are they coming into? In the last few frames, the film allows, the film allows her world to be totally shaken and come full circle, when she decides what she's going to do. And I don't know how many of you saw it coming, but I love it when she takes off her stockings, puts them on, her tights, puts them on, takes out the gun, and she's walking towards the bank. We don't have to see anything else. We're left wondering what's going to happen now. They're going to kill her, and the next thing you know, she's back in the school, and we hear the news report on the radio that the bank was hit. And she's standing there, and she's walking back into the classroom, and who does she see? The student. What goes around comes around. Those last few minutes are very interesting in the journey, but it's a journey of understanding self-discovery. And we have to have compassion that she will take with her for the rest of her life. This lesson. It's the last delicate and quaint commentaries in this movie that allow the lesson to be a film we might not want to revisit, and I understand it, anytime soon. But it's a lecture in filmmaking that you won't soon forget. I want you to think about that. It is a very well crafted film. I can't deny that, and I don't think you should either. You know, there was another film that came out around the same time. Marion Cotillard, the French actress, made a film called 2 Days, 1 Night, in which she's going to be forced out of her job and she has to find a way back in, and it follows her. And it's not the same journey. I mean, she doesn't rob a bank, but it ends in an interesting way. It's a Dardenne Brothers film, and it's very interesting. But I'd love to hear, you know, when you think about her and you think about what she's forced to do and what she finally does, you know, think about where this film takes place and what culture. It is the third world, definitely, maybe the fourth world in this case, and what people are doing to her, what the system is doing to her, to grind her down, what her own father is doing to her. All of these things, you know, and all her morality have taken her down a rabbit hole. And she desperately wants to climb out of it. And in the end, she does. Now, I will tell you, the actual teacher who did this, I said she had 2 master's degrees, well-respected teacher in a small town like this, hit a bank, and she never went to prison. They exonerated her. When they found out the circumstances of what happened and everything surrounding it. I mean, I don't know if she had a husband like that. I don't know what that part of it was, but the town refused to let her go to prison. She was that well liked. That you could understand when they saw how desperate she was, what happened. So I will tell you, for the real teacher, it ended happily. And she wasn't even suspended. So now I'd like to hear from you, and we can go over different scenes and, you know, hear what you feel about the film, your reactions to it, and maybe we'll understand a little more. Barbara.
On you. I just loved her. As opposed to the teacher, which I saw, which I just, you know, we hated her.
Okay, we'll get back to that another time.
That she wouldn't apologize to the father's floozy. And that she, you know, this desecrated the photograph, and that she stuck with this you know, mess that she married. And she didn't seem to have any, I mean, I would have killed the man, but she seemed to just, this is the guy I married. She seemed to have affection for him. And, you know, she was just going to do what she had to do. And I'm glad that she didn't have to do it. I was so happy.
Yes, she did that. Well, you know, it's
better she robs a bank than get do that other, you know.
Right, what the guy wanted her to do, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
But, you know, and she compromised herself when she was grading the tests, if you remember.
Yes.
She does that.
Everybody got a 6.
Yeah, everybody got a 6. But I will tell you, you know, you asked the question, why did she stay with him? Why did she? Now, we have to understand this country, you know, Bulgaria, and it's reflective of things here too, with certain groups of people, that he may have been, you know, a terrific guy at one point, and he may have lost his job, and losing his job, he went downhill, and, you know, he couldn't hold himself together. you know, we have to try and figure out, you know, there's got to be some reason she stayed with him. And he was a good father. I think he was, you know, he was an involved father. We have to look at that, you know, and understand, you know, and there's little nuances that say, okay, there's got to be a reason she's staying with him. Either that or she will kill him afterwards. But, you know, either way, we have to try, you know, even when something's not apparent, when it's not, you know, in your face, you got to try and figure it out. That's what the film does. The film has to challenge you sometimes to say, well, wait a minute, why is she with this guy? And you see him as a father, you know, he's a loser at this point, and he's lost everything. He's even, you know, gone so far as lost all their money to pay for the house without thinking about it. You know, I can't imagine what the plight is of men in that country, you know, when they lose their jobs. I mean, this is not a, you know, this is not a well-oiled machine, Bulgaria. Certainly not. Certainly not. Wendy.
Well, I thought that this reminded me of Mother Courage. I mean, no matter what happened for Kurt Weill, no matter what happened, she forged ahead. And there was a certain, when she wanted him to do the dishes, he was reluctant to do that. Here she is grading papers, wants him to do the dishes, and he doesn't. But he rubbed her feet after she had that long walk after she abandoned the car when it ran out of gas or whatever. But it's amazing that a woman like that with 2 degrees would succumb to this kind of relationship and situation. She was kind of stuck, but she carried on. And I thought it was interesting to see that kind of fortitude.
Well, terrific. I will tell you, you know, when I went through the films for this theme, I mean, this was one of the first films I picked, because if you think about it, she is all that. She is all that and more when it comes down to it finally, in terms of a character in a film. You know, what she decides to do, you know, how she falls and then tries to bounce back up. I thought was very interesting. Linda Hock.
I'm gonna play the devil's advocate on the husband there for a minute. I don't think he was all bad. I mean, he did lie and he didn't do the money like he was supposed to. But you remember the scene? He was trying to sell that camper.
Yeah, very
hard, and how disappointed he was. He had taken that money not to go out drinking with it or buy something for himself. He had bought a gearbox for the camper. Right. So perhaps, I mean, the man didn't make good decisions, obviously, but I think he was trying to fix the camper and sell it and get the money back, pay the mortgage, you know, catch back up and get ahead a little bit. Because I think he, you know, just was a halfway decent sort that made bad decisions. But then maybe
yeah, no, you're not, and I don't think you're wrong. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I think somewhere along the way, you know, he lost his job, he lost, you know, and it put him.
But even in this, he was trying in his way to fix things. He was trying to sell that camper, and you couldn't sell a camper that didn't run. He needed
but he was making a bad bet, you know, by putting it in the camper instead of the house. Yes, but yes, absolutely. Who's next? Anybody? Oh, Marilyn, definitely. Go ahead.
I tend to agree with Linda. I think one of the telling scenes was when the little girl said, "I want my daddy." She loved her daddy, and she was happy with the mother. But there was something about him that was very sincere. And I think, again, at the end of the scene, when you saw him comforting her, I think he was just a very weak person, and she obviously was the strength. At the beginning of the film, I thought it was reality TV, because I thought it was so real. I could not believe that those students were actors. And I really found that it was a very sincere film, very well done, and compelling. You know, there wasn't a moment that you were not attracted to every incident. And I can never understand how a child performs so well. This little girl was just a fantastic actress, crying at the appropriate times. So I really thought it was a brilliant film. And thank you.
Thank you. Well, you know, what you're saying is, so when you think about it, you know, it feels like the film at the beginning, you know, when everything starts to go, when she falls into that rabbit hole, you know, she's well educated, decent. It feels like a mistake that she, of all people, should get caught up in these machinations. It feels like a mistake, you know, a faceless, uncaring system. And yet the ease with which it happens suggests it can happen to anybody. It can happen to anybody when you think about it. And you know, it makes one wonder. It gives us a sense of that precipice, of that little line over which so many of us can blithely hover. You know, what if we were suddenly forced to look down? What if we were put in that position? You know, what do you do? You know, we all hopefully have safety nets. We have backup systems. We have support people, but a lot of people don't. And what happens when they're put in that position? Good people put in that position. So we have to think about that. And I think this film explains it very well. She is real. You know, she's not a superhero. She's not overly dramatic. She's a real person, and she does it very well. By the way, the students were real students. They weren't actors, but they did their job. They were acting in the film. They were acting in the film. Yeah, Linda.
Well, I'd like to throw this out. You mentioned that she was calm because of the culture she was in. I was wondering if she was stoic, maybe because of a destiny where, you know, in that culture, they feel that they can't control anything and they're accepting of that.
I think, no, I'll tell you why. And what makes that clear is the scene in the bank when she's facing down the other woman. Remember? And she says, wait a minute, you didn't make that clear. You did, you know, she's arguing with her that the bank was, you know, pretty much using everybody, and she really let her have it. I think she's the exception to all of that. I think you're right about the culture. I think there's a certain stoicism in the culture that this is the way it is, and I can't do anything about it. But I think she realizes if she doesn't do something about it, it's all over. And I think that's what gives her the ability to move, you know, to try and get out of that situation. Even, you know, and I want to get back for a second to, you know, the husband. And I love it because she creates a contrast with the father, you know, the other man in the film. You know, look at him. Look at him. She certainly didn't marry her father. That's for sure. You know, and there was a reason for that. And you know, we can understand her bitterness, you know, over what happened, you know, why, you know, when he chooses this woman over her mother. Obviously she was dedicated to her mother. But you know, so that becomes clear in the film. Linda, I'll get back to you in a minute. We got other people in line. I'm sorry. Anything else, Linda?
Nope, I think that's
Okay,
about it.
thank you. Thank you. Marilyn.
What I was, first of all, I totally agree with the other Marilyn regarding the husband, because when I saw that, how he was the nurturer, because even though the white person who is the protagonist for us was a goer and a doer, and she made things happen, looking at from the eyes of her child, she wanted the father even when she was with her mother, right? She wanted her papa or whatever she preferred. So he definitely had to have some kind of really nice soft side to him, because the child chose to go to be with him whenever possible. So I guess there was more to him than that. But when I was watching this, it reminded me, I think it was a Rodney Dangerfield kind of expression. He said, if it weren't for bad luck, she'd have no luck at all.
Yeah. Yes, terrific. Yeah, it's true. It's true. I mean, you just see, you know, how the spiral, you know, how far is this going to go? You know, how far is she going to be pushed? And when he pushes her into that corner, when the loan shark pushes her into that corner, she doesn't want to go there. You know, she's ready to go there. At one point, we see her get dressed, and she's ready to go. And then she really, you know, she thinks about it, and she can't do it. And I love the surprise, the look on the loan shark's face when she brings him the money.
The money.
It's like, oh, I lost. I mean, he really, you could see it on his face. You know, how did you get the money? I mean, I think he would want to go partners with her at that point if he only knew. But it was really, I thought, very, very interestingly done. Which and before I continue, I have to tell you, their next film after this was a film called Glory. It's a film called Glory. And all I'll tell you, it's about a watch. It's really about the instrument that it's about is about a watch. But in that one, they work with the same actors, these two. And in that one, she plays the bad guy. And believe it or not, the loan shark is the good guy. They reverse roles. They reverse roles, if you can believe it. Anyway, Marilyn, do you have anything else?
I do, but go on to Rachel and I'll come back
Okay.
to what else I was gonna say.
Great. Rachel, go ahead.
Unmute. You have to unmute.
Rachel, you got to unmute yourself.
I will unmute. Okay.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I found it ironic in a way that both her father and her, they both had partners that the other person did not like. The daughter did not like his floozy girlfriend, and her father did not like her husband. And the thing is, you know, it's interesting, I thought, about integrity. Okay, she had integrity, but yet she robbed a bank instead of doing whatever her father said. The floozy girlfriend wanted her to do say I'm sorry with the hands up and with the chakras and everything else. You know, she'd rather do that, and she decides to rob the bank. You know, she made choices, and there's consequences to those choices. And it was also ironic. Here she is robbing a bank, and at the end of the movie, here is this kid that she's trying to catch for the longest time, and she finds out who stole it. Now what does she do? You know, she also stole, and now she is in charge of dealing with this kid that stole. I also found it very interesting that throughout the time when she was talking to the students, she kept on saying him. He did it. He. It could have been a she, but she never, it was ironic to me. I noticed that. It's just a little thing, but I noticed that. And when she is walking, and, you know, when her car breaks down, you feel that determination. I'm going to do what I need to do and get through this. I will make it, you know. And it was just and the thing is, if she opted for what the loan shark would want, she would be beholden to him constantly. He would up the ante all the time, saying, okay, now I need you to do this. Now I need you to do that. And she would never be released from him. So that was never going to be, in my eyes, a good option. So that's what I thought. I thought it was a good movie, well acted, and I liked it.
And you should stick to what you said. I like it too.
I liked it.
Yes, very good. But also think about the system. You know, all along the way, what the system was doing. The cop was in cahoots with the loan shark. The bank wouldn't give her a break for 30 cents. The guy who was going to mortgage, put it up for auction, wouldn't listen. The other guy she was working for really wasn't going to pay her. the money for the documents she translated. She wasn't going to get paid. I mean, it just one thing after another. This was the system. The whole system was corrupt. And she, you know, how do you deal with a corrupt system? You know, she was pushed into that corner. So it's understandable, but she was doing it with a water gun, with a water pistol. And I am sure when she got tried, they said extenuating circumstances, you know. So, you know, fortunately, there was nobody in the bank that would shoot her. And that's the way it would be. So we're thankful for that. But we can understand, you know, it shows you how we can let somebody cross that line. You know, how somebody could tell us a story and we could let her cross that line and understand why. I think is really, really a brilliant stroke on the filmmaker's parts. Wendy, you had something else? Oh, okay. Linda, back to you.
Okay, well, it was back when we were talking about the father.
Yes.
And unless I missed something in the movie, I didn't see any sign of wrongdoing on his part. The mother had died, so theoretically, you know, she was a grown. I mean, he was a grown man with a grown-up daughter, and she really should not have made judgment on his girlfriend or whatever. So I thought she was out of line for that. She showed she was a bit rigid and judgmental. And so I didn't understand that quite. I felt very sorry for her through the whole thing, but I thought she was a little silly, you know, with the drawing on the picture and doing, unless there was some wrongdoing where the mother had been mistreated. And I may have missed that, but without that, I didn't understand the strong reaction to a father's girlfriend at that point.
Yeah, well, you know, the only way, again, it's open to interpretation, but, you know, I think it was essentially, you know, he was in the military too, from what I gathered. They were both in the military. And I think they were probably devoted to each other. And I think, you know, when her mother passed away, he went off the deep end literally and said, okay, I'm going to get myself a Twinkie and I'm going to live it up. I mean, you know, when you saw the designs he was making for her memorial, I mean, it was just, you know, it was, and you got the feeling they were somewhat estranged. First of all, he didn't like her husband, and he made that plain. And you know, and also you bring up a point because he said, you don't bring my granddaughter here. You know, he hadn't seen his granddaughter and he wanted to see his granddaughter. So something had to happen there between them that we don't know about. That whatever it is, we don't have to know, but obviously it made her more angry at him. So I don't know. You know, the judgment, you're right, the judgment is out, but she's human. I think that's part of human frailty, is what you're pointing up is, you know, why is she making judgments? You know,
and she was risking everything. She was risking her home and her daughter's safety and everything because she doesn't like the girlfriend. I mean, it was a little bit.
Yeah,
that was the part I thought was a little weak in the movie. Other than that, I thought it was very well done.
I think she also saw on the wall the picture, you know, I don't want her taking my mother's place. Yeah. You know, in essence, I don't want her taking I think it was anger. I think it was anger that got in the way with her.
But I wanted to say something. There was a part that when she got angry with her father, when the floozy girlfriend had all these things that she had to do, she was complaining about how the father treated the mother. Do you remember that?
Yes,
yes.
It was.
I can't remember exactly what she said, but she was like not happy how the mother was treated by the father.
Oh, while she was alive.
Yeah, while she was alive. Yeah, she did. Yeah, you're right. There was a comment that she made when she was asking how to, you know, to go through that whole exercise of apology. Yes. Susan Metch.
Speaking about this whole situation with the girlfriend, I got the impression not only did he treat the mother poorly, that he didn't wait very long to get started on another relationship. That was the other thing I got. And I think that hurt her very, very much because she was close to her mother. And the other thing is, I agree with everybody that even though the father was like an impotent guy, he really wasn't, because he was circumstances really that put him into the situation.
Yes.
And he was making a try and, when he took that money to get something for them, he felt that selling the camper would help them. It would give them money and something to do. And I just felt that every step she took, it was like, this didn't work and that didn't work. And she got gypped by the person she worked for. And it was just one thing after another, but she's just found herself in a way to just trudge on. And I wasn't exactly surprised at the ending, because the beginning, when she was trying to find out who was the thief and who was taking, the money from the kids, she got into the same situation. What do? I don't have the money. What am I going to do? And it was like a flash that came into her head. I don't know what it was, but she did this. And then it turned around at the end, which was so like poetic in a way, that there was this child and she caught him. And then she just didn't say anything. She just took the money and she said, clean the board, and didn't say a word to the kids. So it was a very interesting kind of weaving in this whole thing. I mean, I have to say this, Rachel, this was not my favorite picture. And, but the one before, the teacher, was definitely not my favorite. But this at least, she had to do something. And she tried everything she possibly could, but she wouldn't sell herself. That was the bottom line of it. And I think you're absolutely right. It wasn't just she would have to prostitute herself. It would go more and more and more. That was not the end of it with that guy. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's my take.
Yeah, and also just to add to that, when she sees the student putting, she catches him in the room, in essence, why was he stealing? We have to understand, why was he stealing? Did he not have money for lunch? Did he not, where was he in all of this? Judge not lest you be judged. I mean, it's about judgment, and it takes out judgment. But I think, for a film, as I said, no, it's not a film I think you're going to want to revisit very soon. But it's certainly, when you analyze it and you see it and you see her performance, it's a well-crafted film. Not about enough subject, and certainly not something we would want to see ourselves in, not something we would want to relate to in terms of a situation, but a very interestingly done film. I thought it was very interestingly done and worthy of you seeing what's happening in Bulgaria. I mean, in terms of film, not necessarily in the everyday, but in terms of what that culture produces. Here are two filmmakers, creating something on a dime that I thought was very interesting, very interesting. Anybody else? Marilyn.
Yes.
And then okay, Marilyn Rosh, and then Marilyn London.
Okay, thank you. Well, one of the things I think, if I remember correctly, she was upset about the fact that her father had not done a headstone. There was some,
yes,
right, and I think that was very upsetting to her, that he was so negligent. That was one thing. The other thing, where I looked at the ending and I thought, she was saying to that little boy, I don't really understand why you did that. But then again, she understood why she had done something that was so out of character. And it was just, she grew. She grew as a person and as understanding how people steal and why. Not that it's right. She didn't say that it was correct.
Right.
But she had that compassion.
Yes, I agree. She did. She found her way out. She found out, what she's made out of. Mel, did you want to add to that?
I just want to point out two things. A film gives us a little insight into the culture of these people. And if you think about it, all the males in this picture were bad except one, and that's the bus driver who allowed her to go on without paying. So that's number one. And if you know these cultures and you travel there, the men, it really is a male chauvinistic type of culture. And I think that's what we saw in this picture. And the other thing is the lesson. What is the lesson? The lesson is that she learned that, yes, people do bad things, but maybe there's a reason behind it. And I think she was more compassionate to this little boy.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Well, as I often say, great director Jean Renoir once said, "Hell on earth is that everybody has their reasons. Hell on earth is that everybody has their reasons." So you just said that. Okay, thank you. Marilyn, London.
Um, gosh, there were just so many different things. While Mel was speaking, I was thinking, do you think maybe if she found out who the person was who stole before she stole, she might have been not as compassionate as she ended up being at the end? I don't know the answer, but what I was going to say really was that despite her resourcefulness and she definitely didn't, I found her very resourceful. I found that she certainly didn't compromise her integrity. However, when she was pushed to shove, she reminded me so much of the bicycle thief.
That's you mentioned that to me,
I
and I
mentioned
think
that to you before.
that's a great.
I just think because both of them were as moral and as upstanding and as honest and all of these good things. And when push came to shove, they both.
It's a great reference, I think, and I think it's a reference that even the filmmakers are aware of. Okay, because that is the classic film about that, and because they go through that experience all the way through, he and his son, until he robs the bike at the end, and I think what you just said was, this is neorealism. This film is also neorealism. It's a modern take on neorealism. In a society, it's where we're talking about World War II Italy, which that was a totally impoverished society. Here we're talking about a society that's trying to work its way through. I mean, she's a school teacher, she's got a job. So it's not like, it's about getting work, because you can't have your integrity without it. And his dignity, she was being robbed of her dignity. Let us understand that. So yes, I think that's a tremendous reference, because it is the same kind of filmmaking. It's the same kind of filmmaking, with the same objective at the end. Jackie, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I did. You can
I
tell.
don't mean to interrupt.
that permission.
I don't mean to interrupt, but
You can tell Larry and I go, no, I don't agree with that. I'm sorry. Well, so many of the things that we're saying, I think I don't actually think she was being robbed of her dignity, except by the loan shark. Everything else, they set in motion themselves. I have to pay my bills. No one's robbing it from me. So that kind of bothered me in a way. I think she wasn't just moral. I do believe she was extremely rigid and very judgmental. And I found it interesting. One of the things, I'm going way back to something Linda said, I just never got in there, is that I agree. She didn't like the father's new woman, but he didn't like her guy, but she didn't like that the father didn't like that. And so I thought that was kind of, like you said, Linda, I thought it was ironic that she wanted to judge, as we're all calling her, which is really unfair, the floozy, but she didn't want him to judge the husband. But one thing I did notice through the movie is there's no music at all. I thought that was very interesting that there's no music.
Yes, you will notice it in these kinds of movies, that the absence of there's no need for it. This is not a melodrama. This is, a realistic approach to society, we tend to, as an audience, we tend to judge. We judge all along the way in film. We look at a character and right away, and that's why, and I understand you saying, we're calling her a floozy, but she didn't seem like the brightest tool in the chest. I mean, let's understand that. The way she comes out at the beginning, she just painted her nails, doesn't even want to open the gate. But I tend to agree with you. in your feelings about the film, because it's very open-ended. She's human. I think this is, this is the human condition. The human condition is to be angry at people without explaining why. We don't know why. We can come up with many reasons. She yells at him, the way he took care of her, the way he mistreated her mother. We don't know how her mother was towards him. We don't know all of these things. So we have to make judgments of character. But I think what's important is, yes, she makes judgments. Yes, she's rigid. But I think, as Mel said, in the end, she learned the lesson. The lesson really was what she learned, especially when she says to the student, okay, go erase the blackboard. That really nailed it right there. And I think that's what we have to look at. It's nothing is perfect, and certainly no system is perfect, as this film shows. But it really shows us humanity. I think this film really, really put humanity out there for us. And to understand in the end, okay, what would you do? What would you do in this situation? This is that kind of movie. What would you do? And, it's difficult. It's difficult. So, but thank you. Thank you. Susan, you had more to say? Mitch, did you have more to say? Oh, okay. You're up in the top. You're in the answer corner, so I didn't know. For me. Anybody else? Anybody else before we wrap up? Okay. For a film that I was told, well, why? Look at the discussion we had. I think it was terrific. I think for a film, you sort of said, well, it's not one of my favorites.
I gotta say something.
Oh, go ahead, Barbara.
Because we rooted for her. I mean, the movie was bleak. You thought, oh my God, this husband of hers, he's just no help. And you just wanted her. You didn't want her to be giving blowjobs to these guys so that she would lose her house. You wanted it to come out okay for her. And I was tense while I was watching the movie.
Yeah, well, good.
Happy ending.
Well, no, and that's the point, is they gave us a real ending. I mean, they gave us a real ending. Yeah, they gave us a real ride. They gave us a ride for our money. I mean, not to know where this is going. I mean, to me, that's the first rule is, don't expect, and really don't lead me down a path that I think it's going in. Take me for a ride. And they did. That's terrific. I think you all rose to my occasion. I even have, let's see, Ed said, I completely understand a choice. What will be another choice? Another action to take to avoid losing the family's home. Yep. Good. Okay. So, and the other reason I chose it, if you choose to buy it, is, it's holiday season, and I can't make you just walk away feeling good. Although you will in 2 weeks. You
it's
will.
Not Hallmark.
The next film, is called The Sense of Wonder, and it is. I wouldn't call it a romantic comedy. It's sort of an anti-romantic comedy, but it is a wonderful film. It's a French film, and I did choose that as being the last film of the year. It's a wonderful cast. It's a wonderful story about a young widow with 2 children who's trying to keep her farm going, and inadvertently hits a young man on the road. And what happens from there, you'll find out if you haven't seen it yet. But it's a wonderful film. It also deals with people on the spectrum, and it does it in a nice way. I thought it does it in a really sensitive way when you think about it. Remember, it's a comedy. It's French. And it does certain things to our hero in a certain way. So I hope you enjoy it, and I will look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks. Yes, Mel.
I just have one question. Are we still getting Canopy through the library? I'm having trouble.
Yes, you should be.
I know trouble.
Okay, wait a second, Mel, you're in Palm Beach. What county are you in?
No, but I signed up through through the Broward County,
Yeah.
the Sterling Library.
If
How
you're
many films
having a
did you see?
problem, call the librarians and they will help you.
Yeah.
Can I
You-
say something? You might have to put your information in, because that's happened to me before, where they just all of a sudden make your library card not good and you have to go in and give it again.
Okay,
That happened to me this past week, and it had happened one other time about a year ago. So you try that. Just go to your settings and see if your card is showing expired.
okay, very good.
Really?
Terrific,
Thank you.
terrific.
Well, thank
All
you.
right.
Shelley. Thank you for, again, a wonderful upbeat presentation on a movie that wasn't that way.
On a downbeat film.
Yes, yes, yes. So we'll see you all.
And happy
on
holidays to
28th.
everyone.
Happy
the
holiday.
Happy holidays.
Thank
to your
you. Good
friends,
night.
all of
Thank
us.
you.
Happy holiday,
Thank you,
everybody.
Marilyn, for all. your
Happy
help.
holidays, happy Hanukkah, Christmas, Kwanzaa, and I
Happy
will
life.
see you
Whatever.
before the new year.
Yes.
I will
Yes.
see you before
Yes.
the new year and
Right,
wish you
right.
again then.
Absolutely.
Good.
Good night, all.
Be well.
Good night.
Night.
Good night.
Night.